What happens when a simple favor turns into a betrayal that sends everything spiraling out of control? How can a woman's self-deception and manipulation destroy the life she once knew, leading to a public and lawful reckoning? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Kendra Dalton, and I used to think I had it all figured out. I'm a 32-year-old professor at a university, married to Austin, a man who worshipped the ground I walked on. We had everything people said was perfect: the house, the careers, the adorable dog. Yet, for some reason, nothing ever felt enough. I first met Austin when I was still in grad school. He was a few years older, quiet, dependable. He was my rock from the very beginning. I remember thinking how lucky I was to find someone who could match my energy. Austin was always so kind, always so patient, so eager to please. But after a few years of marriage, I started to notice something. A shift. His love didn't feel as exciting as it used to. At first, I convinced myself it was just the weight of routine setting in. He'd still kiss me goodbye, still tell me I was beautiful, but something in the way he looked at me had changed. Maybe it was the exhaustion of work, or maybe it was me. Who knew? I spent more time at the university, giving lectures, grading papers, and planning new curriculum. My work was my escape, the one thing I could still control. But there was always something missing. I needed more. I didn't want just affection. I needed desire. I wanted someone to look at me with that hungry, desperate gaze, the kind I had seen in the younger students. And one day, I found it. It started small. Nothing to worry about, really. Just a student, Jason Evans, handing in an essay that was remarkably well written. I praised him for it, even mentioned it in front of the class. He seemed to appreciate the recognition, but there was something in his eyes that made me pause. Was it admiration? Or something else? I couldn't tell at first, but it was enough to stir something deep inside of me, a reminder of what it felt like to be noticed, to be desired. Over the next few weeks, Jason would stay after class, asking questions about the syllabus or his assignments, but he always lingered just a little too long. It wasn't that I minded. On the contrary, I found his attention flattering. His casual compliments made me feel alive again, something I hadn't felt in a long time. I told myself it was harmless. He was just a student and I was his professor. But it was hard to ignore how easy it was to talk to him, how his presence, his smile, started to fill that empty space in my chest. The flirtation started slow, casual, even innocent. He'd make small comments about my outfit, or how he liked the way I taught. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself it meant nothing. But the truth was, I liked the attention. I enjoyed feeling like the center of someone's universe again. After all, wasn't that what every woman wanted? To feel wanted. One day, after class, Jason walked up to me, a little nervous but determined. He handed me his paper, but instead of the usual pleasantries, he paused and said, "You know, I've always thought you were really beautiful. Your lectures are great, but it's you, that's the real draw." I laughed, not knowing how to respond. He wasn't being inappropriate, not really, but it felt like more than just a compliment. It felt like a challenge, an invitation, a crack in the routine of my life that I didn't even realize needed to be broken. From that moment, things started to change between us. Jason began staying after class more frequently, and the conversations drifted away from academics to more personal topics. We talked about our favorite books, movies, and even our hopes for the future. But the line between teacher and student was becoming blurry, and I didn't care. It felt too good to be seen, to be heard in ways I hadn't been in years. It was easy to convince myself that it didn't mean anything, that I wasn't doing anything wrong. One evening, I stayed late in my office going over papers. I had a few student essays to grade and some emails to answer. As I sat there, I heard the soft knock at the door. It was Jason. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said, stepping into the room, his voice quiet but confident. "I just wanted to drop off this essay and say thanks for everything. You've really helped me a lot this semester." I smiled, grateful for his words. "It's no problem, Jason. I'm just doing my job." But there was something in his eyes, something I couldn't ignore anymore. His gaze was intense, focused, like he wasn't just seeing me as a professor. He was seeing me as a woman. And in that moment, I felt something shift deep within me. I didn't know how it happened, but suddenly, he was standing closer than he ever had before. I could feel his breath on my skin, could smell his cologne. And without thinking, I stepped closer too. "Is there something else?" I asked, my voice low. My heart was racing now, my mind telling me to stop, but my body was telling me something else. He hesitated for a moment, then reached out, brushing a lock of my hair behind my ear. "I just wanted to say, you're amazing, and I don't think you hear it enough." The tension in the room was thick, like everything had stopped except for us. I knew this was dangerous, too dangerous, but I didn't want it to stop. I was tired of feeling invisible, of being the dutiful wife, the perfect professor, the woman no one really saw as anything other than what they expected. Jason was different. He looked at me like I was more than that. "I'm married," I said, finally finding my voice. But even as I said it, I knew it didn't matter. "I know," he said, his voice soft, "but that doesn't mean we can't be friends. Or more." I froze, his words hanging in the air between us. I knew I should push him away, that this was wrong, that it could ruin everything. But I didn't. "Maybe just a drink?" he asked, his eyes pleading for me to say yes. And for a moment I almost did. But then I thought of Austin, of my husband, who had always been there for me, who didn't deserve this. "I can't," I whispered, stepping back, my heart pounding in my chest. "This isn't right." Jason nodded, disappointment flashing in his eyes. But there was something else there too, an understanding, as if he knew the game I was playing. "Okay," he said softly. "But just know that I'll always be here. You don't have to pretend with me." As he left, I stood in the silence of my office, heart still racing, mind swirling with the weight of what had almost happened. I couldn't deny it anymore. I had been tempted. I was tempted, and that scared me. But in that moment, I told myself that I was still in control, that I could push it away, that it would be nothing more than a fleeting moment of weakness, nothing more than a compliment from a student, nothing more than a harmless interaction. But deep down, I knew it was something more, and I was already starting to question if I even wanted to stop. I kept telling myself that everything was fine, that it was just a little harmless flirting, that I could control it. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was walking a fine line, and it was only a matter of time before everything collapsed. Jason's attention became a fixture in my life, a spark that I didn't realize I'd been craving for so long. It wasn't just about the compliments anymore. It was the way he looked at me, like I was someone extraordinary. It was the small touches, the lingering looks, the little moments that felt like secrets between us. Every time he came into my office, I could feel the tension building, and I couldn't stop myself from wanting more. I tried to convince myself that it was innocent, just a little bit of harmless fun. But in reality, I was slowly losing control. The lines between professional and personal were getting blurrier by the day. Jason would find reasons to stay after class, asking about upcoming assignments, discussing his grades. But those conversations would always end with a smile, a lingering look, and sometimes a little bit of touching. And each time, it felt like more than just a student seeking approval. I told myself that I was still the teacher, that I could stop it whenever I wanted. But every time Jason came into my office, it felt harder and harder to resist. He was no longer just a student in my class. He was someone I felt drawn to, someone who made me feel alive again. It started to affect my marriage. Austin had always been so patient, so kind, but lately, he had become distant, and I could feel the tension building between us. He would come home late, exhausted from his job, and I would be too caught up in grading papers or preparing for lectures to notice. We'd talk, but it was always surface-level stuff. How was your day? How's work going? Nothing that really connected us. Austin had always been the steady one, the one I could rely on. But over time, his affection had started to feel like a routine. His touch no longer sent sparks through me. He still kissed me goodbye every morning, still said he loved me, but it felt like something was missing. I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself that it was just the pressures of work, but I couldn't deny the emptiness inside me anymore. Jason's attention filled that gap. It wasn't just about wanting to feel desired again. It was about something deeper. Jason made me feel like I was still relevant, still someone who could make an impact. Austin was wonderful, but he had no idea how to keep me interested, how to reignite the passion. I was starting to feel like I was slipping away from him. And in that space, Jason was right there, offering me something new. One evening, as I was grading papers in my office, I received a text from Jason. It was simple, just a question about an assignment, but it had a playful tone that sent a thrill through me. I quickly typed back, enjoying the back and forth. It wasn't long before the conversation moved beyond academics. Jason asked me how I was doing, and before I knew it, I was telling him about the stress of grading papers and the strain in my marriage. It felt good to open up to someone, to not have to be the perfect wife or the perfect professor. "Maybe you just need a break," Jason texted. "You deserve to feel good again. Let me take you out sometime." My heart skipped a beat. It was innocent, right? Just a casual invitation. But there was something in the way he phrased it that made me wonder if this was more than just a friendly suggestion. I hesitated for a moment, my fingers hovering over the screen. I should have stopped there. I should have told him it wasn't appropriate, that I was married and had no business entertaining these kinds of thoughts. But instead, I typed back, "Maybe. I could use some time to relax." That was the turning point. From that moment on, Jason's texts became more frequent, more flirtatious. We started talking outside of class, arranging to meet for coffee or lunch. I told myself it was just two colleagues, connecting. But it wasn't. Every time we met, it felt like we were crossing another line. Each touch, each look, felt like an unspoken promise that we were more than just student and professor. I started cancelling plans with Austin, making excuses for why I couldn't spend time with him. "I have to grade papers," I'd say, or "I'm just too tired from work." The truth was, I was avoiding him because I didn't want to face the reality of what I was doing. I didn't want to see how much I was pulling away from him, how much I was leaning into the attention Jason was giving me. One day, as I was sitting in a cafe with Jason, I noticed how effortlessly he made me laugh, how every word he said seemed to light up the room, how his eyes sparkled when he looked at me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I mattered. Not just as a wife, not just as a professor, but as a woman. Jason leaned in, his voice low. "You know, Kendra, you're really something special. I can't stop thinking about you." My heart raced. It wasn't just a compliment anymore. It was something deeper, something that sent a shiver down my spine. He was looking at me like I was the only person in the world, and I couldn't help but be drawn to it. I knew it was wrong, that I shouldn't be letting this happen, but it felt too good to stop. "I don't want to mess things up for you," I said, trying to pull away, but my voice lacked conviction. Jason smiled, his hand brushing against mine. "You're not messing anything up. You deserve to feel wanted. I know you want this too." I didn't know how to respond. Part of me knew I was heading down a dangerous path, but the other part of me didn't want to stop. It felt like the first time in years that I was being seen for who I truly was. Not just as a wife or a professor, but as someone worthy of attention. We stayed there for hours, talking, laughing, and by the time we parted ways, I felt like I was floating. I told myself I wouldn't let it go any further, but in my heart, I knew I was already too far in. I was addicted to the attention, the excitement, the feeling of being desired, and no matter how hard I tried to push it away, it only seemed to pull me in deeper. Back at home, I couldn't look at Austin without feeling a sense of guilt wash over me, but at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing in our relationship. I loved him, but I wasn't sure if that was enough anymore. The truth was, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. And the more I spent time with Jason, the more I realized that the life I had with Austin didn't make me feel whole anymore. I told myself I would stop, that I would put an end to the flirtations, to the dangerous game I was playing. But deep down, I knew that wasn't going to happen. The pull of Jason's attention was too strong, and I was already too far gone to turn back. The moment I crossed that line with Jason, everything seemed to change. It wasn't just the thrill of being desired that made it so intoxicating. It was the secrecy. The whispers, the stolen glances, the way Jason's smile made me feel like I was the only one who mattered. And the guilt that gnawed at me every time I looked at Austin, every time I kissed him goodbye or pretended everything was fine. But deep down, I knew things weren't fine. I wasn't being honest with him, with myself, and it was starting to tear us apart. I told myself it was just a phase, that I'd snap out of it, that I'd pull away from Jason before things got too messy. But the more I spent time with him, the harder it became to even imagine stopping. Every text, every subtle touch, every conversation felt like I was rediscovering something that had been missing in my life for so long. Austin was still my husband, but it felt like we were worlds apart. Jason knew exactly what to say. He knew how to make me feel special, to remind me of everything I used to be before I got lost in the daily grind of life. And I couldn't ignore the fact that I was starting to crave it. Not just the attention, but the validation. The feeling of being admired, of being someone who mattered beyond just being a wife or a professor. Jason made me feel alive again, and I couldn't deny how good it felt. I kept telling myself it was harmless, that Austin would never find out. But that lie became harder and harder to hold on to. I started to notice things, small, insignificant details, that made me realize Austin was changing. He was more withdrawn, more distant. He would sit in silence while I talked, barely responding. He'd ask me how my day was, but his eyes were always elsewhere, like he wasn't really listening. I tried to convince myself that it was just stress from work, from life, but the truth was, I knew he was starting to feel it. He could sense something was off, and as much as I tried to hide it, I could feel the tension between us growing, a silent accusation in every glance he gave me. But I was too wrapped up in the excitement of my secret with Jason to care. Then came the day that changed everything. I had just finished lecturing my class when I saw Jason waiting for me outside my office. He was standing there, his hands in his pockets, looking like he was about to say something important. I knew what he was about to do before he even opened his mouth. There was something in his eyes, something that told me this moment was different. This wasn't just a casual flirtation anymore. This was a step into dangerous territory, and I was about to walk right into it. "Hey, Kendra," he said, his voice low and almost nervous. "I've been thinking about you a lot lately." My stomach dropped. I wanted to say something, anything, that would make this moment stop. But instead, I just stood there, frozen, like I couldn't move. "I know we've been hanging out a lot, and I think I want more than this," he continued. "I want you. I've wanted you for a while now." It hit me like a wave. Part of me wanted to say no, to step back and remind myself that I was married, that this was wrong. But the other part of me, the part that had been craving attention, affection, and desire, wanted to give in. I took a deep breath and tried to steady myself. "Jason, this isn't a good idea. I'm married." I know, he said softly, his hand brushing against mine. But that doesn't change how I feel. And I know you feel the same way. He looked at me with that intensity again, like he could see right through me. You're not happy, Kendra. I can see it. You deserve more than this. And in that moment, I realized he was right. I was craving something more. I wanted to feel alive again, to feel wanted and needed. Austin couldn't give me that anymore. But Jason could. I pulled my hand away, the guilt creeping in. I can't. I'm married, Jason. I can't do this. He didn't push me, didn't argue. Instead, he just nodded, a quiet understanding passing between us. Okay, but if you change your mind, I'm here. I watched him walk away, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a pang of regret. Was I making the right choice, or was I just avoiding the inevitable? That night, I lay in bed beside Austin, listening to the sound of his breathing, the silence between us stretching longer than it should have. I turned to face him, trying to shake off the guilt, but it wouldn't leave. I had been lying to him, hiding this whole part of me, and now I didn't know how to fix it. Austin, I whispered, my voice shaking slightly. Can we talk? He didn't answer at first. Then, finally, he turned to face me, his eyes tired. What's going on, Kendra? You've been distant lately. You're not the same. I felt a lump in my throat. How could I tell him the truth? How could I admit to him that I had been lying, that I had been keeping secrets from him? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I'm sorry, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what's happening with us anymore. I don't know what's wrong. Austin reached over and placed his hand on mine, a gesture that felt too familiar, too normal, for what was happening between us. I don't know either, Kendra, but we need to figure it out. I didn't know if we could fix it, or if we even should. I could feel the distance between us growing wider every day, and no matter how much I tried to ignore it, it was becoming too hard to deny. Something had shifted in our relationship, and I wasn't sure I could get it back. But as I lay there in the silence, a thought kept circling in my mind. Was I making the right decision by staying with Austin? Or was I just too afraid to take the leap into the unknown with Jason? Would it be better to leave my marriage and pursue the passion and excitement that I'd been missing for so long? That night, as I lay beside Austin, I realized I had no answers. But one thing was certain. I was standing at the edge of something, and there was no turning back now. The following weeks felt like I was living in two separate worlds, and I could barely keep track of which one I belonged to anymore. On one hand, I had Austin, my husband, the steady presence in my life, the one who'd always been there for me, who supported me through everything, even when things got tough. On the other hand, I had Jason, the student who made me feel desired again, who reminded me of the woman I used to be before the demands of marriage, career, and life had worn me down. I tried to convince myself that I could still make things work with Austin, that I could fix whatever had gone wrong. After all, we'd been together for years. We'd built a life together. We'd shared everything. But the more I tried to rekindle that connection, the more I realized that I'd already pulled away too much. It wasn't just that I was distracted by Jason. It was that I was beginning to want him in a way I hadn't wanted anything in years. And that realization was both terrifying and thrilling. It was like I had been living in a fog, and suddenly, I could see everything clearly again. I could feel the weight of the decision I had to make, but at the same time, it felt like everything was slipping through my fingers. Jason had been texting me more frequently, and each message felt like a lifeline, pulling me further away from the person I used to be. We'd started meeting outside of class, just for coffee or sometimes for lunch. At first, it was innocent enough, but it was becoming harder to ignore the way his eyes lingered on me, the way his touch seemed to say things that words never could. I found myself responding to his advances, letting myself slip deeper into something I knew was wrong, but that felt so right. Austin had noticed the change in me. I could tell by the way he looked at me, like he was trying to figure out what was going on, but afraid to ask. He'd become distant in a way that wasn't typical for him. He wasn't the type to confront things head-on. Instead, he'd retreat into himself, his silence louder than any argument. It was on a Thursday evening, a few days after Jason and I had shared another quiet lunch together, that I realized just how much things had changed. Austin had come home late, just like he always did, but there was something different about the way he moved around the house. He seemed tired, more than usual, and I couldn't help but notice the bags under his eyes. He didn't say much that night. We ate dinner in silence, and when he asked me how my day went, it felt like an interrogation, not a conversation. "How was work?" he asked, his voice flat. "It was fine," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Busy, but the usual." "You seem distracted," he said, setting his fork down and looking at me with a furrowed brow. I froze. I hadn't realized how obvious it had become. "I'm just tired," I said quickly, hoping he wouldn't probe any further. "A lot of grading, you know." He didn't respond right away, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. He didn't buy my excuse, and I knew it. We didn't talk much after that. I went to bed early, hoping the distance between us would shrink by morning. But as I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, I knew I was losing him. I could feel it, deep in my gut. He wasn't the same man who had once adored me. He wasn't the same man who used to make me laugh and bring me flowers for no reason. He had changed, just like I had. And now, we were both strangers in a relationship that had once seemed so perfect. The next morning, Austin left for work early, like he usually did. But before he left, he looked at me one last time, his eyes tired, but there was something else there too, something resigned. "I think we need to talk," he said, his voice quiet. I nodded, my stomach tightening. "Okay." He didn't say anything else. He just left. And I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something I wasn't prepared for. I tried to go about my day as usual, meeting with students, grading papers, but everything felt wrong. It was like I was living in a fog, just going through the motions, waiting for the inevitable. I couldn't escape the nagging feeling that I was about to lose everything. My marriage, my life as I knew it, and the fragile sense of control I had over my own desires. When I finally returned home that evening, Austin was already there, sitting on the couch with a folder in front of him. His expression was calm, but his eyes were dark, like he had been thinking about something for a long time. I hesitated before sitting down next to him. "What's going on?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he opened the folder and slid a piece of paper toward me. I picked it up, my heart racing as I saw what it was, documents from a lawyer. "What is this?" I whispered. Austin looked at me, his expression hardening. "It's the first step in a divorce, Kendra. I've been trying to ignore it, but I can't anymore. You've been lying to me, and I can't pretend I don't see it. The distance, the late nights, the secretive behavior. I know about you and Jason." My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't speak, couldn't even move. My body felt like it had been frozen in place. "How long, Kendra?" he asked quietly, his voice steady but full of hurt. "How long has this been going on?" I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out. The truth hung in the air between us, thick and suffocating. I wanted to deny it, to tell him that he was overreacting, that nothing had happened, but I knew it was too late for that. The truth was already out, and there was no way to take it back. I'm sorry, Austin," I finally managed to say, my voice trembling. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. You didn't mean to get caught," he interrupted, his voice cold. "Or you didn't mean to hurt me, because Kendra, that's what you've done. You've hurt me, and now I have to make decisions that I never thought I'd have to make." I swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking in. I knew he was right. I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross, and now I had to face the consequences. I don't want a divorce, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted this. But you wanted Jason, he replied, his voice sharp, and you didn't care enough about me to stop it. His words stung, more than I wanted to admit. I had never seen him so angry, so disappointed, and I realized, in that moment, that I had lost him. I had lost everything. Austin didn't say anything else. He stood up, grabbed his things, and left the room. I sat there, alone, with the lawyer's documents in front of me, feeling the weight of my choices crashing down on me. I had taken something that was beautiful and destroyed it, and now I was about to pay the price. The silence in the house after Austin left was deafening. It felt like everything I had known, everything I had built, was crumbling around me. I stared at the lawyer's documents, feeling the weight of what they represented settle in my chest. Divorce papers. The finality of it hit me harder than I ever expected. This wasn't just a mistake anymore. This wasn't some temporary thing that I could fix with an apology or a promise to change. No, this was real. Austin was done. And I had no one to blame but myself. I sat there for what felt like hours, my mind spinning. How did it come to this? How had I let everything slip through my fingers? I had everything I could ever want. Austin, a steady job, a comfortable life. And yet, it wasn't enough. I wanted more. I wanted excitement, passion, the kind of attention that only Jason had been able to give me. But now, as I sat alone in the quiet, I realized that nothing I had done could justify betraying the man who had loved me unconditionally for all these years. I was lost in my thoughts when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jason. I hesitated before opening it. Part of me didn't want to see it. Part of me knew that every time I looked at him, I was only digging myself deeper into the hole I had created. But the other part of me couldn't resist. The message was simple. I've been thinking about you. I hope you're okay. Let me know if you want to talk. I felt a knot form in my stomach. What was I doing? Why was I still clinging to this illusion of something that was never meant to be? Jason didn't care about me. He only saw me as an escape, a source of excitement in his otherwise uneventful life. The moment I had started down this path, I knew it was a dangerous game to play. But now it was too late to turn back. I typed out a quick response, not really knowing what I wanted to say. I'm not okay, I wrote. I've messed everything up. It didn't take long for Jason to reply. What happened? Did something go wrong? I hesitated, feeling the weight of the truth on my shoulders. I had spent so much time hiding behind lies, behind excuses. But there was no more room for that. Austin was gone, and I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Not with Jason, not with myself. I typed out my confession, every word feeling like a weight being lifted off my chest. I'm married, I wrote, and I've been lying to him. I've been seeing you behind his back, and now it's falling apart. He's found out. I don't know what to do. There was a long pause before Jason replied. I didn't mean for this to happen, Kendra. I just wanted to be there for you. But it's not what I wanted either. The word stung, more than I expected. Of course, it wasn't what he wanted. He was just as much a part of this mess as I was. And now we were both stuck in the wreckage of something that had never been real to begin with. I put my phone down and rubbed my face with my hands. What had I done? I had betrayed Austin, the one person who had always been there for me. He didn't deserve this, and yet I couldn't help but feel a small pang of regret that things had gone so far with Jason. If I had just stopped, if I had just been honest with myself and Austin from the beginning, none of this would have happened. But the truth was, I couldn't undo it. I couldn't take back the choices I had made, no matter how much I wished I could. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Austin. I felt a chill run down my spine as I opened it. I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow, it said. I've started the process. I'm moving forward with the divorce. My heart sank. This was it. There was no going back now. Austin had made up his mind, and he wasn't waiting around for me to fix things. He was done, and honestly, I didn't blame him. I had pushed him to this point. I had lied to him, betrayed him, and now he was finally taking control of his life. I couldn't even be angry at him. He had every right to walk away. I read the message over and over again, the words sinking deeper and deeper into me. This was real. I was about to lose everything, my marriage, my life, my sense of self, and it was all because of a choice I had made. A choice that had seemed so insignificant at the time, but now felt like the worst decision of my life. For the next few hours, I sat in silence, trying to process everything. My phone sat in front of me, the texts from Jason and Austin haunting me. I couldn't talk to either of them right now. I needed space, time to think. But every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was the wreckage of what I had done. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house. Austin had left early again, just like he always did, but this time, it felt different. There was no goodbye, no kiss, no "I love you." He was already gone, and I was left alone to pick up the pieces of a life I had destroyed. I dragged myself out of bed and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the coffee cup in front of me, unsure of what to do next. I knew I needed to take responsibility for my actions. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine, that I was somehow justified in what I'd done. I had hurt Austin, and I knew there was no easy way to fix it. But I had to try. I had to find a way to make things right, even if that meant facing the consequences head-on. I grabbed my phone and sent Austin one last message. "I'm sorry," I typed. "I never meant to hurt you. I was selfish, and I've ruined everything. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I just want you to know how sorry I am." I hit send and sat back, waiting for a response. But I knew, deep down, that the damage had been done. Austin had made his choice, and so had I. Now, all that was left was to face the aftermath. The days after sending that final message to Austin passed in a blur. I didn't hear back from him. Not a text, not a phone call, nothing. It felt like a death sentence to our marriage. I was living in limbo, caught between the guilt of what I had done and the helplessness of knowing there was no undoing it. I had crossed a line that couldn't be erased, and now I was waiting for the inevitable consequences. Austin didn't come home that night. He had stayed with a friend, he told me later. I understood the need for space. He needed time to process everything that had happened, and I had no right to rush him. But the emptiness in our house, the absence of his presence, felt like a weight I couldn't shake off. It was hard to breathe in the silence. The next few days were a blur of mundane tasks and emotional turmoil. I went through the motions at work, trying to focus on my students and the papers I had to grade, but all I could think about was Austin. I knew he was meeting with his lawyer, preparing for what he believed was the next step in his life, divorce. And I couldn't blame him. Not anymore. I had thought about what I would do when everything fell apart, but I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. The idea of Jason, the one who had once made me feel alive, now felt like a mistake I had let spiral out of control. He wasn't the solution to anything. I had wanted him to be, but now I saw the truth. He was just a distraction, a bandage on the wound that was growing between Austin and me. And even that, I had broken. I didn't reach out to Jason after that final exchange. I knew that I had to face the mess I had created without him. I had to be the one to fix this, if I even could. But how? How could I undo the lies? How could I fix something that seemed beyond saving? On the fourth day after Austin left, I decided to go to his office. He wasn't answering my calls, and I couldn't stand being apart from him anymore. I needed to talk to him, to explain myself, to show him that I was sorry for everything I had done. I needed him to hear me out, even if it meant he didn't want to hear it. So, I drove to the law office where he worked, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Every part of me screamed that I was making a mistake, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. When I arrived at the office, I stood outside for a few moments, staring at the building. My heart raced as I tried to calm my nerves. I knew this might be the last time I saw him in person. I wasn't sure what I expected. Maybe some kind of reconciliation. Maybe just an answer to the question that had been haunting me. Why wasn't he fighting for us? Why wasn't he trying to save our marriage? I walked through the door, my legs feeling weak beneath me. The receptionist gave me a polite smile, but didn't say anything as I asked if Austin was in. She told me he was in a meeting, but I insisted that I needed to speak with him. After a long pause, she reluctantly agreed to let me wait. As I sat there, alone in the sterile lobby, I couldn't stop the flood of emotions. Guilt, shame, regret. It all hit me like a tidal wave. I was sitting there, hoping Austin would come out, but knowing deep down that this might be the last time I saw him in this way. He had already made up his mind, hadn't he? He had already moved on. When Austin finally walked in, he didn't look at me at first. His eyes were downcast as he made his way to the desk, but then he looked up and met my gaze. His face was hard, his expression distant. For a moment, we just stood there, staring at each other, as if both of us were trying to figure out where we stood in this mess. "I didn't think I'd see you here," Austin said quietly, his voice calm but cold. There was no anger in his tone, no rage, just quiet, resigned pain. "I couldn't just sit at home and do nothing," I replied, my voice cracking slightly. "Austin, I'm so sorry. I know what I did was wrong, and I can't take it back. But please, just hear me out. Please, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he just looked at me, his expression unreadable. The silence between us felt suffocating. I wanted to run to him, to beg him to come back, but I knew I couldn't force him to feel something he didn't anymore. I had lost that right. "I know you're angry," I continued, my voice barely above a whisper. "I would be too, but the last thing I want is for us to end like this. I don't want to lose you." Austin exhaled slowly, his gaze falling to the ground. He seemed to be weighing something in his mind before finally looking up at me again. "I don't know what to say, Kendra. I've been trying to process everything, but it feels like everything I knew about you is slipping away. It feels like I don't even know you anymore." I felt the tears start to sting at the corners of my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I had to be strong. For him, for me, for the future that we should have had. "I know I've changed. I know I hurt you. I don't want to keep making excuses, but I need you to know that I still love you. I've been so selfish and I regret everything. Please don't let it end like this." He shook his head slowly, his jaw tightening. "I wish I could just forget this. I wish I could believe that you're telling me the truth, but I can't. You've hurt me in ways I can't even describe. And it's not just what you did with Jason. It's the lies. The way you've kept things from me. I don't know how to trust you again." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I knew he was right. I had betrayed his trust in ways I would never be able to repair. I had crossed a line I couldn't come back from. "I never wanted to hurt you, Austin. I never wanted this," I said softly, my voice barely audible. "But I know that I can't make it right by just saying sorry. I can't change what I've done, but I can promise you that I'll never make that mistake again." He looked at me for a long time, his eyes searching mine as if trying to find something to hold on to, something that would make everything okay again. But he didn't find it. Instead, he sighed and looked away, rubbing his temples as if the weight of this whole situation was too much to bear. "I can't go back, Kendra," he said finally, his voice steady but full of pain. "I don't know if I ever can." And in that moment, I knew that it was over. There was no fixing it, no second chances. He had made his decision, and I had made mine. And now, we were both paying the price for it. "I understand," I whispered, my heart breaking in a way I didn't know was possible. I just wanted you to know how sorry I am." Austin nodded, his face hard. "I know you are, but sorry doesn't change anything." He turned to leave, his footsteps echoing in the empty office. I stayed seated, watching him walk away, knowing that this was the last time I'd ever see him like this. The man I had loved for so long was gone, and now all I had left was the mess I had created. I sat there for what felt like hours, unable to move, unable to breathe. The weight of everything was crushing me. I had lost Austin, I had lost myself, and the worst part was that I had no one to blame but myself. But in the quiet aftermath, a cold reality settled in. The consequences of my actions had come. There was no going back.